Life can change in an instant. For many wheelchair users, the struggle to push forward is a daily challenge. After years of development and countless prototypes, we created Rib Grips, the revolutionary wheelchair hand rim covers with built-in ribs for ultimate grip and comfort. No more slick surfaces, no more heat burns, just pure, reliable grip. Rib Grips, empowering you to push forward with ease. Rib Grips. Get a grip on your freedom. Discover the difference. Visit ribgrips.com and use promo code GRIP today. You just found the perfect product that helps with staying cool during hot summer runs. No more gross warm water. Stay cool with this product from Gear Handle. This hydration tube cover helps keep your water cool and easily accessible. Stay hydrated during those long summer runs or even delay from freezing in the winter. Plus, they're compatible with various brands of water bladders and come in various colors. Visit GearHandle.com and use promo code H2O today. This is a Rogue Media Network podcast.
Coming up on the Payoff, Jay Mohr. That's all I have to say. Comedian Jay Mohr, SNL alum, Jerry Maguire alum, and a card-carrying member of Recovery. And one of those dudes talking to him today, I got finished feeling better about myself. And that's Recovery. So Jay Mohr's coming up. But first, Kevin Souza. All right, so this podcast is obviously, this conversation's all about sobriety. But your career, I want to touch on that too. It's hard to not talk to someone like you and not get into your career. But being that it's about sobriety, I want to start there and ask you the question that, was it true that you thought that Wu-Tang Clan, the morning of your intervention, you thought you were going to interview Wu-Tang Clan on your podcast?
Yeah. You have to lie. You have to tell a drug addict a lie to get us to our intervention because you can't outthink us. Mine was in my house here in LA. So right away, you know, I was a speed guy because only somebody addicted to speed do you have to trick to get back into their house. It's like, why would I go in my house when I'm obviously in a parking lot fixing shopping carts? I got a nice little, I'm not charging for it yet. And they told me the next morning for my podcast at 8 a.m. I was going to interview Wu-Tang Clan. And I was in my podcast rooms here in my house. And I was so high, Pete, I thought that was true. I thought Wu-Tang Clan was coming over to my house at 8 o'clock in the morning. I don't know if you listen to Wu-Tang Clan, but they're not morning people. But that's like it says in the 12 and 12 on step 4, right in the middle of the page. It's like a banner just for me. Did we overvalue ourselves?
Yeah. That's
how grandiose I had become in my addiction. Like I was going to interview Wu-Tang Clan so I could help them with their career. Meanwhile, I'm doing talking dog movies every 18 months.
But what was that like? I mean, when you come down for your intervention, so much of your story is super relatable from, you know, this is your bottom. And honestly, a lot of people on the outside would say, well, it wasn't like you can go deeper, right? How did it happen for you that you were able to, I guess, walk us through the intervention and then talk about how you got to that bottom?
Well, your bottoms, what do they say? Your bottoms when you stop digging?
Yeah.
And when I speak at meetings, especially when it gets grimy, like if I love speaking in prisons, and I tell the guys, look, I've never been incarcerated. I've never been arrested. I've never overdosed. I've never been hospitalized, but I lost. And one thing we all have in common is we've lost. I mean, when you're 50 years old and you're sitting at your own intervention, there's not a lot of gray area. There's no yeah, but when 12 people all agree that it's come to this, they all get up early, they go across town, they've met with an interventionist for a week beforehand, they've practiced their speeches and their consequence letters and their bottom lines. Nobody wants to do an intervention. It's nerve-wracking. It's excruciating to confront somebody about this, especially your closest friends, your brothers, your sisters. your parents. Let me get rid of this call. Chris,
Yeah,
I'm
no
doing
problem.
I'll call you when I'm over. Nobody wants that. And so I also learned at my intervention that not everybody, a lot of the people at my intervention had tried to do an intervention going back 3 years, but they just couldn't rally the horses.
Yeah. So you go to treatment, and one of the things that you say that I could so relate to is that when you get there, you had been just a compulsive person for your whole life. And when you go to treatment, finally you start to move away, like that thought and that action start to separate a little bit. Like that to me was like magical as an early part of my recovery.
Yeah, there's never been a separation between thought and action. If I think of using, like, my thought and my action is one thing. If I think of using drugs, I'm already on my way. I'm already on my way to get more. Forget the initial one. If I'm thinking of hanging out with lower companions, I'm already on my way there. And if those people happen to have drugs also, even better. But then just that 30 days separation from drugs and alcohol and being forced to follow a routine. It's the first time I made my bed, Pete, at 50 I don't know if it's the first time, but the first time I did it every day because I had to, or you get in trouble. You have to, it's time. Rehab is time out for adults. It's like, okay, give me your phone. You can't have it. I'll hold it for you. Give me your phone. Give me your wallet. Give me your keys. You're going to wake up, you're going to make your bed, you're going to go to this place, you're going to sit with these people. Now it's lunchtime, you get what you get, and you don't get upset. It's really, of course, everybody's calling me right now.
It's fine. It's fine.
Sponsees and whatnots. Yeah, so I needed that separation. And it says I interpret the big book where it says, like, there has to be I believe it's a doctor's opinion, there has to be a period where if they're particularly befogged,
yes,
you have to just separate them a bit before they can hear the message. And my unbefogging period was longer than that first rehab. When I was done with that first rehab, there was a Zoom call with a couple guys that were on my intervention, and I thought they were going to congratulate me and argue over who got to come pick me up. And instead, they held up a brochure like, oh no, now you're going to go to this rehab. But that separation between thought and action, I was thinking you guys can all go F yourselves, and I wanted to, go crazy. But instead, I just put my head in my hands and said,
you said yes. You followed I did the same thing.
I said, what if I don't go?
Oh, really?
And my agent said, well, then I won't book you anymore. And that scared me because I'm not a comedian. I don't know who I am yet.
Yeah.
I'm going to get a job. I don't have any skills. Hey, weren't you the guy in Jerry Maguire? Yeah, you wanted a Phillips head, right? And then my other friend, Chappie, who's sober 30-something years, I said, what's your bottom line if I don't go? And he's like in his house in Boston in an armchair, and he goes, there's no bottom line. I love my life. And that's what got me.
Yeah.
The two, like, I won't book you anymore, and I could care less if you go. My life is great. And I realized I would like my life to be great too.
For me, that's when the magic totally happened. When I followed suggestions to leave like a nice rehab and to go, I lived in like a halfway house with 10 other dudes. I showed up, I opened the top drawer, there was a dried out bowl of spaghetti where I was going to put my clothes. I was like, son of a bitch, I got a job working at KFC. And it changed my life. Like that extra, that long-term care thing really helped me out.
I was willing to go to any lengths except sober living.
So look, I want to talk about growing up a little bit. You grew up in North Jersey. You were, by all counts, I mean, just from reading about you and listening to you, you're a pretty popular dude, captain of the wrestling team. Were there any, did you know you were an addict early on or looking back? Did you know it? Did you have those tendencies?
I don't think I knew until I was in my 20s. My mom got sober when I was 10, so I knew sort of the steps from going to meetings when I was 10 years old, 11, 12 with my mom. So I kind of had a head full of AA and a belly of booze my first drink.
Yeah.
But I do remember looking back when you have to write, like in rehab, you write like your timeline. And I realized the first time I drank, there wasn't enough. And the only time in my drinking career I ever stopped drinking was when it actually ran out. As kids in high school, we would walk across golf courses, hop fences, through backyards, just go to other towns because there might be a case of beer that we could steal out of someone's car. I remember doing whippets. I worked in this big restaurant catering hall with a giant walk-in refrigerator where they kept the fruit and but they also kept the cases of whipped cream. So if you got that one little topper, you could plug it into each individual can and kick it. And I would go in there and you had to wear a tuxedo at this job. You're at somebody's wedding. And I remember I would just hit these whippets while I was at work. So I was probably about 17 or 18. And I remember once I got to 8 in a row. And then I just remember waking up and there was this old woman, Julie Heck, standing above me with this giant fruit tray that she was putting away. And she said, JJ, what's wrong with you? And I just got up and I took an orange off her tray and I said, I was just waiting for you. And then I left. In hindsight, that's not how normal people behave.
No, but then that's for me, that's who I ended up. I was around a bunch of people that did that type of stuff. So it didn't seem totally abnormal.
I always had another level that other people didn't have. And that, Pete, that's not alcohol and booze only. Before I ever drank, your attention, I always needed more of your affection. I needed more approval. I needed a constant pat on the head that everything was okay. If we were 8 and we were sitting in your living room watching TV, I would spend the entire time trying to convince you how great it was that you and I were sitting there watching TV, right? Like I was exhausting. And I know from doing the steps, I had a great father. I was an insatiable child. So my mom was a drunk. She got sober when I was 10. So from 0 to 10 is chaos. My dad worked in Manhattan, which is 30 miles away. He came home at 6, left at 6, came home at 6. So I was just alone a lot. I was the youngest kid on the street, just always wondering where everybody is. What are the rules? Nobody taught me they kind of taught me to brush my teeth and comb my hair, but I was kind of feral.
Yeah.
And if you look at my class photos from kindergarten to 4th grade, I just look like an actual hillbilly that crawled out of a hayloft. Like hairs up here, missing teeth, fever blisters all around my mouth. But then my mom gets sober at 10. And in 5th grade, that class photo, I look like Travolta in Saturday Night Fever.
But that's amazing. And that's what the people that we're close to, that's how we affect them when we get sober, when we work a program. Like that's pretty amazing.
I knew it worked.
Yeah.
I watched it work with my mom. I watched their marriage get strong and I watched them like ease into retirement and have a great life, buy a boat, get a house that they always wanted to get. My sisters, we all were more relaxed. It became a nice, so I knew it worked.
Yeah.
Probably why it took me 50 years to accept it.
Well, so you got to get hit over the head. Like nothing that I do, all my decisions have been made for me when it gets like stuff that's really ugly, in a sense where like hitting my bottom, like I had nothing left. I had nowhere to go. I've noticed that about myself. Like as an alcoholic, I can sustain a lot of pain. I can take a lot of pain until finally it's time to make a decision. Now, so I want to ask you about your rise. You're across the bridge. You're in North Jersey. What you started doing stand up at like 16?
Yeah, at 16, I tried stand up at an open mic that was at noon on a Sunday for teenagers. So the audience was other teenagers. It was awful. But when I came off stage, a guy said, "What are you doing Wednesday? We all go to Hackensack. There's an open mic there." I was like, all right. And then at that place on Wednesday, a guy said, "What are you doing Saturday? We all go to Montclair, New Jersey. There's a place there." And I was like, all right. So then all of a sudden I found my tribe. It's really, really, really parallel to sobriety. You go to a meeting and they go, "Tomorrow we're going to go to this meeting." And you're like, okay. You just start rolling with a crew. And it's like, then we go, "Have you been to the beach meeting?" "No." "Have you been to Bread and Roses?" No. I want to go though, because I want to fit in.
Yeah.
And I've always just wanted to fit in. Like my step work was pretty damn good because as an approval addict, I really wanted to get the approval of my sponsor. So I just was like, oh, wait till he gets a load of me. And my early recovery was all defects of character, wanting to be accepted, wanting that approval. I did all these acts of service. Like I'd bring my vacuum cleaner from home to the Alano Club and I'd sweep and I'd vacuum and I'd mop. Not because I was like this magnanimous guy with a psychic change, but I knew my sponsor was going to walk in with another old timer. And when they saw me, they were going to say, oh my God, there he goes. The greatest member. We've never had a guy like this in AA before. But
he's the best.
In all that effort to get my sponsor's approval, I wound up getting my own approval.
Yeah, that's the thing. Sometimes it's like for me, the same deal. Like you kind of like, it doesn't really matter what gets you in the door. It does, but and what gets you to meetings. But I ended up just having smart feet. Like where like literally after I went to rehab and lived in a halfway house and I was living with another sober dude in Jersey City, actually. And I would just like, I was crushing meetings in Hoboken and New York City. And it was like, it became, I got that fulfillment that I got from alcohol and drugs. Were you getting a lot of fulfillment from getting on stage as a comedian early in your life? Because you had a meteoric rise, dude.
Well, yeah, but it's like anything, it's a law of diminishing returns. Like when you're 20 years in, it becomes a job and you start seeing what other people are doing. And you have that constant comparison about the tickets they're selling. What is he making in this? Then it becomes sort of a slog. And then you go, for me, I go through these periods of renewal over and over again in stand-up. It gets really tedious to travel 2 shows a night. You're just like, gee whiz, I just did it. I got to go up there again for an hour. But then you have a new 20-minute chunk. Then you can't wait to get up there and do it again.
Yeah.
So I love it overall, but when I get to the minutia of it, I like it. It's a pain in the ass, but also it's what's a better life, Pete? I go out every other weekend. I got to get up on one day early to do radio, and then I have 3 days to literally lay in bed all day and watch Dateline.
And then sounds awesome.
You just go, and then you go do 2 shows. Everyone's happy to see you. It's a great job. Everybody's like, but also it's a great remedy for drug addiction. I get applause on my way to my office.
Yeah.
The stage is my office. When I show up, people go, oh my God, he's here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then while I'm doing my job, if you talk while I'm talking, you get thrown out. I'm the boss. It's the exact time that I'm comfortable with. I do whatever I want to do. I hit that time. When I'm done, I get a standing ovation because I did my job for 45 minutes. And then I sit alone in a hotel room for 22 hours.
Do you feel isolated at all when you go to these different cities? Or yeah.
I mean, but now I travel with my sponsor as a sober companion. Nice. I did it at first to get everybody off my back so they'd be comfortable with me going back out on the road.
Yeah.
Because they thought that's the trigger. And maybe it is, but I know, and the trigger's between my ears.
Totally. I mean, when I'm spiritually fit, dude, I can go anywhere I need to. I mean, singleness of purpose. I'm not going to shut down the bar or the club.
Right.
But if I got to go there, I'm going there, especially if I got a job to do like you have.
I started doing it to get them off my back. And then what happened was all of a sudden I was amazed at how much better the road was with a road dog. Like,
yeah.
This guy's with me. I come off stage, he hands me my glasses, he hands me my gin, he hands me my phone, and we're already walking. He knows my routine. We do radio, then we get a little breakfast. I hit my Zoom meeting in the morning. We meet up, we go to the gym. And then you got somebody to run interference. It's like, do you want to talk to these people? No. Okay, now you can't, right? I can't believe I did it alone for 30 years. What an awful existence going alone.
Well, it's funny, the doors that sobriety opens, whatever, that may be. Or early in your career, you went up on Saturday Night Live. I remember you came into my life on MTV, but like that was a great show. Was it like lip synced or something? Right?
Lip service. It was a lip sync game show where you had to lip sync songs, but you didn't know what song you had.
What was that experience like? Because that had to be like a huge break for you.
I'm 20 years old, making $1,000 a show. And I'm going to quote Bootsy Collins from my old More Stories podcast. He said to me once, back then, that was like $1 million. And then he went, no, it was $1 million. It was $1 million, Pete. 1,000 a show, 3 shows a day, 20 shows in 2 weeks, whatever. And then I got to go to like MTV Spring Break. It was so fun. And then after that, you know, my manager owned a comedy club and he had auditions for Barry Katz. The great Barry Katz was my manager, and he owned a comedy club in the Village. And they had Saturday Night Live auditions, and I was doing a lot of impressions and stuff. So I went up third, because we always had this inside joke / strategy. Your best hitter hits third. So I went up third. This is July, and the air conditioning broke. And it was on the second floor. It was unbearably hot. Like the walls were wet. It was awful. I go up third. I kill. What nobody knows is that everybody from Saturday Night Live left halfway through the 4th guy. So 8 guys went up that night to nothing. If I went up 5th, I would never have been on Saturday Night Live. It was just completely chance. It's so much like the book Outliers, like your timing.
Yeah. My
manager owned a comedy club, so I could go up every single night, no matter what. I was the next guy on stage. And then they asked me to go up again at Stand Up New York for a second audition.
On like, what's that, like 75th Street, right? Like around.
So, yeah, 77th and Broadway. My least favorite club. It's like an operating room. And I just thought I had no chance. So I'm at the gym on Houston and Broadway. I literally go from the gym in my sweatpants and like a girl's Chapman lacrosse t-shirt. I take the subway. I'm at the bar. I'm drinking a couple Amstel Lights. And I noticed every guy around me is like wearing their funny shirt. Their hair is perfect. And it gets in my head like, oh, I'm going to stand out. Like I have a shot because I'm the only guy that's like me right now. And I went up and it's absurd that you're going to get it. There's like 2 people hired every other year out of 8 billion people on earth. So I go up on stage and I thought everybody from SNL was in the back left corner of the room. So after every impression and punchline, I would just stare back there and let them know I wasn't intimidated. So then I get off stage 8 minutes later and I leave the stage right, and everybody's on this side of the room. So I spent 8 minutes just staring down some like real estate broker from Patchogue, Long Island.
But you get the job. But you get the job, and then it leads to a whole. I would imagine, dude. First of all, it sounds like you were kind of young enough where you were being yourself, or you know, I love the idea of like standing out, being you. But then like the pressure cooker that's Saturday Night Live, and you've talked about that, where that you had some anxiety during that time. I mean, I can't even imagine. You're handing in these bits. You're getting shot down, or maybe it's getting accepted. You have to rework them. I heard the story you told about the Shannon Doherty when you had you did the Psychic Friends with Christopher Walken, and she was supposed to be Sean Young, and she's like, I'm not comfortable making fun of Sean Young.
Yeah, but after we rehearsed it already too.
Yeah. So like what?
Oh. So then the next week it was Aerosmith and Jeff Goldblum. I was just demoralized after she kiboshed my sketch. And Lorne Michaels walks into the writer's room like at 11 at night. And he goes, how's Jay, how's Psychic Friends going? And I said, I'm not going to do it. He goes, oh, no. You have guilt and momentum on your side. So I was like, oh, like I said, I'm doing it right now. And it was better because my parents were able to come in. That one would have been Aerosmith. That one would have been Shannon Doherty and Cypress Hill. And instead I got Jeff Goldblum and Aerosmith. It was awesome.
What was that like for your ego?
I mean, SNL is,
go ahead.
The pressure cooker for me wasn't even the competition. The pressure cooker was, you don't know how anything works. Anything. When you get, if you get a new phone, let's say you switch from like Galaxy to Apple, and you have to update everything. Then you got to go set something down on a table, but it's from IKEA and it's not put together yet. Then you got to go watch TV, but you have new remotes and no one told you how to work them yet. Then you got to turn off the closed captioning and no one knows how to. Then you go to your bedroom and that's a different TV and a different phone and the bed's not put together. Like every single step of the way, I was clueless. And my way of handling that was sulking, tantrum, alcoholic behavior.
Yeah.
I remember Jim Downey, the head writer, told me to go. He said, why don't you go around to everybody's offices and just do your impression so they know what you can do? And I was did we overvalue ourselves?
Mm-hmm.
I was indignant. Like, I'm not going door to door like a salesman.
Yeah.
They don't know I can do Joe Pesci unless they know I can do Joe Pesci. They don't know I can do, you know what I mean?
Harvey Keitel.
So in hindsight, he gave me good advice. I just didn't take it.
What was it like? What was like the substance like during that period of time?
I just drank until oblivion.
Really?
But I was having panic attacks really bad. Oof.
How did you cope with that?
On live television. And then I remember Sarah Silverman saved my life. She said, you're having a panic attack. You have to see my doctor. She saved my life. And she gave me the lady's number. I called the lady's answering machine. Within an hour, she told me I could come see her on Sunday. She was working at a hospital. I went to her in the hospital and there was no place to like lay down. I thought like it was a New Yorker cartoon where you lay down on the couch.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, I thought I lay down. She goes, no, you can lay on the floor if it makes you feel better. And then we just talked about what was happening. And she said, yeah, it sounds like you have panic disorder, which is the life-saving level release of adrenaline and endorphins for no reason. Here's a drug called Klonopin. Let's start you on 1 milligram every day. Let's see how that works. So I took the 1 milligram of Klonopin. I went home and I took a 4-hour nap. And when I woke up, felt pretty good. And by the next time I saw her, it's kind of like sobriety. It's kind of like if you're ever on an antidepressant, it's not until somebody says, how are you feeling, that you actually look in the rearview mirror at how long it's been since you freaked out, that you realize, oh my God, I feel great.
Yeah.
And she said, great. I said, well, don't we? She goes, no. If you had bronchitis, we wouldn't try to get into why you had bronchitis. I was like, okay. And that's kind of the only drug I never abused because it was tied to life-saving, efficacy. But when they took it away in rehab, that was terrifying because I had not been off it in 25 years.
The Klonopin?
I was down to like a 0.5 milligram every other day. And I fought to hold on to it. And they were like, no way, bro.
Yeah.
Then all of a sudden you're in a van with a bunch of other addicts going to the beach and you're like wedged in. You got to pee. They're playing crappy rap music from some bad radio, handheld radio. Then all of a sudden you have to fly for the first time without it. And it was the third step prayer. I was flying to Milwaukee and I started to get,
Was this your first show?
Pretty much. First one on the road. Yeah. Yes. First one I flew to. And I started to get that feeling. And I did the third step prayer, and where it says, relieve me of the bondage of self, I realized, oh, this is all me in my bondage of self, because in this exact moment, I haven't had any panic attack. Every single day I've been completely fine, haven't thought about it once. Now suddenly I'm in an airplane seat and I start thinking, well, how long is the flight? What if I have one over Colorado? How much longer? Can I breathe? Why is my stomach weird? Well, is my nose stuffy? That's completely me applying my nonsense to the moment. Like, it's all anticipatory dread, which is what my doctor really explained to me very well too at that time. So I did the third step prayer and I realized it was bondage of self. And I just kept saying it and it kind of went away, which was fascinating to me. And then I catch myself in airplane bathrooms, just in the mirror, I see myself smiling because I'm not freaking out.
That's it. I mean, and it's like that practice of whether it's the third step prayer or whatever your coping skill is. Like I've realized, like in recovery, like if I'm freaking out or I have to do something, I'll have a talk with God. I'll say the third step prayer and it's a muscle I flex now. So it's not as crazy anymore as the first time I did it.
Yeah. And it's all anxiety about, I might have a panic attack.
Yeah.
Like, right. It's never crossed my mind in the last 11 months at all. But when I'm on a plane, all of a sudden it's like, uh-oh. That's bondage of self.
Yeah. Well, I was talking to my sponsor not too long ago, and I was in self-pity, and he was like, self-pity is selfish. Like that to me was the ultimate turn, because I was like, I'm feeling shitty about myself. This has got to be okay for me to be like this. And he's like, no, that's selfish too, dude.
Yeah. Not only is it selfish, we love to spread it.
Yeah.
If we had bronchitis, everybody we talk to cough in their face. But when we're in self-pity, everybody we talk to, we're like, oh man, blah, 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 blah,
yeah.
blah. And it just perpetuates. I heard a guy say in my Zoom meeting, I'm a terrible narrator. I'm a terrible narrator of any interpersonal relationship. That's why I call my sponsor and we go, like I'm meeting my sponsor today an hour early because I got something brewing personally, and I've just got to let him examine the facts and let me know what reality is. Because look, when I think I know reality, I wind up standing in line for meds at 50.
Dude, I appreciate you saying that, because it's like that's the ego being smashed in a sense where, look, I still, no matter what it is, no matter who you are, how old you are, how much time you have, if you have a big event personally, like I got to sort that stuff out with my sponsor or somebody else, in the rooms, like not myself, there's no more for me. Like when I got this is the worst thing I could possibly say.
To paraphrase the Albert Einstein quote, the brain with the problem will never be the brain to fix the problem.
That's it right there. So a couple more things about your career in sobriety, and I'll let you go. You're 20. What were you, 26 when you were in Jerry Maguire?
Yeah.
So what is that like, dude? You're in the biggest movie in America. You have a key role, and you're just coming off Saturday Night Live. You end up doing another movie with Jennifer Aniston after that. You got to be looked at as, especially people you came up with, like comedians, right, in the trenches. You hit. Like how is that affecting you personally and the substances around you?
I don't think it affected me. Well, of course it affected me, but I think it affected the comics around me more than it affected me. And I can see that now in recovery when I start to get really jealous of very successful comics that I don't think are as good as me. I see these guys playing arenas and I get that, like really? So I put myself back on the stoop of the comedy club in 1997 as one of those guys when Jay Mohr walks up with 2 movies under his belt with Tom Cruise and Jennifer Aniston. It's like, oh, really? So I can actually have more understanding and compassion for where they were coming from. It seems, Pastor Rob Bell once said to me, you have joy, and joy is a great divider. Joy is like a snow plow when you take it out in the real world. It just splits people away. It's very, when you have joy and you exude joy, it can be very separating. But the good thing about recovery is, like my sponsor is a joy guy. I roll with those winning guys. Yeah. That just mopes need not apply. But going back to your question, I knew how Saturday Night Live was.
Mopes need not apply. That's a great one.
Mopes need not apply. We're full.
All right.
Saturday Night Live was massive. Like that was 10 Jerry Maguires to me, because I was coming from doing clubs and MTV, like, hey, wacky game show, to you are now legitimate for the rest of your life. Yeah. This is going to be the first line on your resume when you die many years from now. So, but Jerry Maguire was big, but it took so long to get. Show business is designed to deduct joy from the moment of closure. You have to jump through so many hoops, and you have to keep doing this and that, and then this guy comes in, then you got to do it again for that. And so by the time you get it, you're like, yeah, right? Really? So I auditioned to be the quarterback, played by Jerry O'Connell, and I blew it. I absolutely blew it. Couldn't do a Southern accent for whatever reason that day. Then after that, they said, have you read the script? I said, yeah. They said, you know the part about the male nanny? I said, absolutely. They said, well, why don't you go out in the hallway, pick up the script, the sides for that one part, and when you're ready, come back in and read for that. So here's more Providence, more outliers. In that scene, the nanny says to Tom Cruise, I want you to use something with her. And you think he's going to hand him a condom. But he hands him a cassette tape of a live jazz recording to play.
Yeah.
And that whole speech is about that record, about the musicians on that tape. I had that tape. It was John Coltrane, Miles Davis, Cannonball Adderley live on stage with Philly Joe Jones on drums. And exactly what Cameron Crowe wrote, I already knew, and I was fired up about it. So it took me a minute to memorize it because I already knew, like, oh, Cannonball Adderley, and he's with his brother, Nate Adderley, and John Coltrane. And the only white guy to that day that Miles Davis ever worked with, Bill Evans on piano. He's a minimalist. He barely plays. So I was just ready to go. And Philly Joe, Tony Williams on drums is 18 years old. Miles loves 18-year-olds. They're too dumb and young to be intimidated. Blah, blah, blah. So I memorized that so quickly. So they probably thought I was like a savant.
Yeah.
So I read that. It went well. They asked me to come back the next day and read that with producers. I came back the next day into Cameron Crowe's office with Richard Sakai, Jim Brooks, Cameron Crowe, all their assistants, other people from Sony. And then when I was done, everybody was very quiet and it was very awkward and weird. And I thought, did I do something wrong? And then Jim Brooks was standing up against his desk and he said, how about Sugar? Meaning Bob Sugar. And the whole room went, yeah. Like nobody wanted to say it. I know it's weird now because they already had an offer out to Owen Wilson to play Bob Sugar. So in order for me to get the role of Bob Sugar, they had to, which never happens in Hollywood, they had to rescind his offer for the guy with, I had like Bret Hart pro wrestling hair. I didn't own a suit. So thank God they saw something in me. And then I went back in to read with Tom Cruise a week after that. And Tom tried to kill me with the scene. He was off book. He knew the whole script by heart. And it was obvious. It was a sink or swim moment, like playing golf with the club pro.
When you say he tried to kill me, you mean he was throwing 100 miles an hour? Like he was.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It was as if we were filming the scene that moment. And it was, you can either step your game up or this business isn't for you.
Wow.
But Pete, up until that point, you're reading with like casting directors.
Yeah.
Reading like with middle-aged women from the Valley that are like, oh my God, blah, 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 blah. And they're working a camera at the same time.
Yeah.
You have this great actor across from you, and it's like, let's go.
Yeah. So you have the success there. You have the, like, you're getting big movies, but then you stopped drinking in 1998. What brought that on? And did you think you had fixed it when you stopped drinking?
Oh, for sure. At the rap party for Suicide Kings, it was at the Improv, and they wanted me to roast everybody. They wanted a comedy show where I roast the crew and the cast. I had, 8 beer, like regular, just hanging out, having beers. And then I had a bottle of champagne. Then I went on stage. Then I had another bottle of champagne. Then I switched to scotch. The next day I was supposed to go to the beach with a friend. And on the drive to the beach, I crapped my pants, holding in what I thought was a fart. Then I had to go back, change, shower, change. Then just crippling hungover on the corner of Lancashire and Riverside at that red light. I said, my God, this is bad. Like I drink too much. And my friend said to me, why don't you do what I do? Why don't you just have like 2 and stop? And I said, because once I have 1 or 2, I'm powerless. I said the magic word from step 1, from going to those meetings at 10 years old with my mom. I knew the language. Once I have 1 drink, I said I am powerless. And when that came out of my mouth, it was over. And I just stopped drinking. And I went to AA, but as my friend Kevin says, I was loitering with intent to recover. I never did any step work, never tried to get a sponsor. I just showed up every couple of months. And then when the obsession to drink went away, I stopped going. And then I started drinking NyQuil alcoholically.
I've heard you say that you would drive around with NyQuil like in between your legs.
Yeah, like a farmer on the range with a beer between his legs. But I had a bottle of NyQuil.
And that's the insanity, dude. It's like, I'm not drinking though.
I'm not drinking. I'm taking NyQuil to help me sleep, even though I'm drinking it at noon. And then Vicodin. My dentist, I got Vicodin from my dentist. This is alcoholism. Ready?
Yeah.
Never took a pill before in my life. I'm a scaredy cat. My dentist gives me 10 Vicodin after I had dental work done. I take one. I sit home. I start playing Madden by myself. And that Vicodin kicks in. That tuning fork vibration that only I know about. That perfect pill secret. As soon as it kicks in, I go in the guest bathroom, I'm alone, close the door, lock it, and I take the other 9 pills and I count them to make sure he didn't fuck me.
Yeah.
That's insane.
I spent a lot of time counting pills, and that's when you know you're kind of...
The first pill I took, I'm like 8, 9, better be 9 or else I'll come visit your ass, buddy.
So how did it progress to the point where, first of all, you're still working, and you can, speak to like how well you were working or how much, but like you're working all the time, dude. And you got this monkey on your back, and then you turn to Adderall, which totally makes sense to me. Cause I was like, I loved cocaine. I loved Adderall. I was dating a girl when I was in college or right after college, and she was going to Australia. And for some reason, they gave her the 610 milligram pills that she were to take in Australia when she left the United States. She just gave them to me because we were in love. And yeah, I mean, the blue ones. Yeah. I mean, I'm taking these like candy, and I was like literally never the same again. And every time I got drunk after that, I always wanted speed. And then I just wanted speed solo. It didn't matter. But that stuff really, it screwed me up because I was motivated. I was on task, or so I thought. But I was literally, waiting for the Wu-Tang Clan to come do my podcast with me.
Adderall motivated me eventually to get more Adderall. Adderall helped me focus, and then it helped me focus on getting more Adderall. It motivated me to get, and it helped me focus. It became my entire life, and it ran me down. If you watch like those nature shows where a cheetah runs down an antelope, I'm the antelope. And it just became all I cared about. I would wake up, swallow a 30 milligram and snort 15, break a 30 in half, crush it up, snort it, take my kid to school, which is down the street, swallow another 30 on the way back, snort a 15, off my phone, driving 3/4 of a mile.
Yeah.
Come home, do something that was important, probably a scratch-off ticket or go to the car wash again. And I did that 30-15 dance all day and all night. And then at bedtime, it's indica weed until I pass out.
So that was you taking the edge off, like, and falling asleep.
Yeah, I could sleep. I couldn't get to sleep. I couldn't physically lay down. If I laid down, I went out.
Yeah.
But also once you hit the bed, then the laptop goes open.
Yeah.
You're
on a lot of speed. I get that. Yeah.
I'm not looking up stocks.
So you meet, tough transition, but you meet the love of your life, right? Jeannie.
Well, no, it's a good transition because the former love of my life, the current love of my life.
Yeah. Well, that's it. Right. And so you literally, you're still in addiction though, when you meet her.
Oh,
and I saw her interviewed. It was really amazing because as much as she'd been around, life, she hadn't really seen this. And she said the story about you, like you kept running out of gas. And she was like, what is happening with this guy? Like, I'm in love with him, but he can't, like, why is he's run out of gas 4 times in like a couple weeks or a month?
I had a new car and I ran out of gas in it 3 times in February. I got the car in February. In that first month, I ran out of, so that's how well Adderall helped me focus. I couldn't keep track of my gas gauge.
And normal people are like, what in the world is going on?
Yeah, but I didn't know.
Yeah.
One time I learned after the fact, the big, huge, holy smokes, we have to have an intervention or he's going to die. I was driving to Tempe to do stand-up this is my last hurrah weekend, to do stand-up during COVID. Arizona's big red state. They're
wide open. Yeah.
We're open.
Uh-huh.
I ran out of gas on the 10 freeway between LA and Phoenix in the middle of nowhere. I had my skateboard in the car. I got on my skateboard with a little empty 1 gallon, gas thing. I skateboarded on the 10 a couple miles to the exit to go to the gas station. I decided to live stream. I'm skateboarding on the 10 freeway. 18-wheelers are blowing past me, and I'm like, hey, everybody, show must go on. In my mind, I'm showing how committed I am to doing stand-up. But to everyone around me, it's like, first of all, who runs out of gas on the 3rd time? Secondly, and more importantly, who skateboards on a United States freeway? It was insane.
How did everything change for you? Like when you get sober, you go to treatment. I think the magic bullet for a lot of people, like not the best term to use, but is that extended care, dude. It really shows like, look, man, I'm willing to do whatever it takes. I'm willing to go to any lengths. Like for me, that's at least my story, because I tried meetings, I tried, all kinds of bullshit to satisfy people or whatever. But you go to that extended care place. And when you come out, how does your life just change? Like you notice, okay, this is, because my thing, Jay, was when I'm hanging out with a couple buddies who aren't in sobriety, but I've been crushing meetings. I'm sober for like 6-8 months. And I'm like, wow, like this is fun. Like I can do this, like, wow, this is amazing. Like when did you have those moments? And I guess, how did they occur?
The second rehab was where it's the dominoes started to fall in a good way. I thought Jeannie organized my intervention, so I carried that resentment with me into treatment. I wrote about and I shared about that resentment. I was like, that ship done sailed. She did me dirty, man. Then in the second week of the second rehab, so now we're at 6 weeks in an institution, I learned it wasn't her at all. In fact, she was almost impossible to get to the intervention because she was afraid of losing me. It was my agent. And when my agent is like one of my best friends, he's my best friend who I groomed to be my agent. He's not a guy that I met as an agent.
Yeah.
My personal buddy. The guy that on rooftops in Manhattan in our 20s were like, my man, we're always going to look out for each other. And him telling me, crying, we said we'd always look out for each other. That's this. I'm looking out for you. Crying. So I realized I had it, my perception of what happened was so inaccurate. And I felt like shameful that I carried that resentment 6 weeks. That really changed everything. That my brother looking out for me from 3,000 miles away, he's in New York. He's getting reports back from comedy clubs saying I'm unhireable, and it had nothing to do with Jeannie whatsoever. That was a big wake-up call. Then, by chance, I got kicked out of that rehab for something I did not do.
Okay.
But your family doesn't know to believe you at 6 weeks recovery. I knew I didn't do it. They...
yeah, because you've been all your whole life, or, yeah.
And so I had to go so hard in recovery to show them that I wasn't some guy goofing off. And I had to show them, I had to have smart feet, like you said. And I did every single thing that was suggested, like you said you did too. They said the rehab provided a sober, it was bad. Like I got called into the office and I was on my way to the airport in 45 minutes. Like they watched me pass. Okay. It was nuts.
Yeah.
And I had to make my plane reservations in the car on the way to the airport. And my friends are like, what are you doing? I'm like, So they said, make sure in recovery, they go, when you leave here, make sure you go to a meeting right away. So I got home at 9. I was on a Zoom meeting at 11. And I was at a meeting at noon the next day. Make sure you have somebody go through all your old hiding spots. So I called, who's now my sponsor, could you come help me go through my old... By the way, we found a pharmacy under the seat of my car. It was amazing. I went to, can you do 90 meetings in 90 days? Yeah, I'm still doing it. Can you get a commitment? Here's 2. And I did everything. I remember one day I showed up 5 minutes before the meeting started. My sponsor's across the room. He yells, "You're late." And I was like, everybody looks at me. I'm like, I'm not late. I'm 5 minutes early. He goes, "No, man, you got to be 15 minutes early." So the next day I show up a half hour early just to show him. And because I was a half hour early, I made new friends and I got a commitment. Like everything I did in early recovery was to get his approval and to show it really was out of spite. If I got to get sober, I'm going to out sober everybody. You guys watch.
Yeah.
I'm going to be the most sober. I'm going to be the mayor of this place. So that's how it went early in recovery. But like I said, by trying to get his approval and get everybody off my back, I got my own approval. And I had my friend Kevin, the guy that took me to rehab, he was all about morning routine. You can't just wake up, get shot out of a cannon, and what happens, happens. I wake up, I don't stand up. I slide out of bed onto my knees. I say the 3rd step prayer, 7th step prayer. I ask God to guide my thinking. I ask him to show me a newcomer I can help. I write a gratitude list. I call my sponsor. In 3 years and 3 months, I've missed 2 days, and that was early before it was like part of the routine. My sponsees call me between 7 and 8. At 8 a.m., I do a men's Zoom meeting every day. That's every day, no matter what. After the Zoom meeting at 9, I go to the gym. And then I call, there's a couple other guys I call between, 9:30, 10:30, take the dogs out. I go to my noon meeting every day. And then nighttime now is for family. I got my family back, and that's family. But I asked my sponsor's permission to not do 3 meetings, to do 2. And he said, "No, that's fine." I said, "Well, I hear guys slip all the time when guys relapse. It says because they stopped going to meetings." He says, "Yeah, but they weren't going to 3 meetings with a commitment at most of them." I said, "Okay." But then I tried going, Pete, from 2 meetings to 1 meeting a day. And 3 days after that, I put a tire iron through somebody's windshield. And I was like, oh, back to 2.
Welcome to the human race. I mean, that's it. Yeah.
Some guy in traffic just threw a can of Coke at me from his car. And I was like, I happen to have a tire iron. Watch this.
That we are not saints, dude. I mean, we're not perfect. And that's kind of thing. Like, honestly, like you said, like getting booted from the rehab, making that mistake in traffic. Like, how do we handle all that stuff? I've had like some failures or some whatever some flops in sobriety. And I'm like, that's the best part about being sober is I don't use that as fuel to get lit up or do more stupid shit. Like I go to a meeting or I talk to somebody about it and I heal and I really like you telling me that story helps me now going forward. You know what I mean?
Early in recovery, when my sponsor was disappointed in me, I couldn't take it. It was the worst. Worse than my dad being disappointed in me. When my sponsor was like, I don't know, dude, then I always try to stay 2 activities ahead of what he can ask me. I'm always early to the meeting. I'm secretary of 4 meetings. I'm a greeter at another meeting. I do the chips today at my nooner. Like he always, and he drills. Don't rest on your laurel. Where it's annoying to hear over and over. So I always did something proactive just to shut him up.
Yeah.
Like you got to get H&I pen. No, I already got one. Oh, okay, good. A+. Because really, at the end of the day, I'm still trying to make my dad happy. And by the way, my dad's completely happy with me.
How's your relationship with your mom? Is she like?
She passed. She passed. She died very sober. She died like the queen of New Jersey AA. So not only does the disease run in my family, recovery runs in my family too.
How did her recovery like plant a seed in you when you look back? I mean, you speak so fondly of, hey, my mom got sober when I was 10, and you talk about that 4th grade picture and the 5th grade picture.
Well, I watched her get her life together by doing what we do. They're entirely the absence of a profit motive, their altruism, like it says in the doctor's opinion. I watched my mom help other women, always on the phone. Like I see myself with my club soda and lemon. I'm on the phone with my sponsees, and I giggle because the only thing missing is the long phone cord. I had to go under the phone cord because my mom was always on the phone with her sponsees. And I just realized I'm doing what she did. I'm always talking to somebody. I'm always helping out. And it makes me feel great. Like, I guess she was my Eskimo and she didn't even know it.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like. Last question. When you have a guy that you're sponsoring or a newcomer you meet, or maybe it's somebody at a prison and they're like, I'm hopeless. I'm never going to get this. You know, what, or somebody listening right now, you know, like what do you say to that person?
Well, if it's a sponsee and we're talking face to face, I'd say, well, if you're hopeless, what am I doing here? Jared, let me tell you my favorite sports story that Joe Torre told me himself.
Nice.
He goes out to the mound in the World Series to take David Cone off the mound. He's getting lit up. He goes out there and David Cone says, I feel good. And Joe Torre says, then what the fuck am I doing out here? So when a guy says like, I'm hopeless, well, then what am I doing here? And I see something like, we've all been there.
Yeah.
Who are you helping is my response to sponsees. Yeah, that's cool, but who did you help today? Who are you helping? Who did you call? Who did you check in with? Who has less time than you that you let them know I was where you are? Look, there's a chapter in the big book called Into Action. It's not into thinking. It's not into moping. It's not into complaining. Move your ass, get off your ass, go do something, go help somebody. Then if you can, for a week, can you get up and get on your knees and pray every morning, write a gratitude list every morning, call another alcoholic every morning, go to a meeting every morning, do that for a week. And if you don't feel different after that week, you can go back to the shit you were doing. You can go back to your miserable life. It's there waiting for you. But
we'll refund your misery.
Yeah, you will feel better.
Yeah.
You will feel better. But a lot of times, and I know this from firsthand experience, you don't realize how good you're doing until somebody just says, hey, how are you doing? Like writing a gratitude list every day, I realized I've written over 1,000 gratitude lists. I have proof, and I got the step work. I got, I love when a guy writes out, I'll have a guy write down all your defects, write down your character traits when your life was unmanageable. And it's, selfish, dishonest, petty, blah, 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 obsessive, blah, 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 blah. Write out your character traits right now, today, next to it. And it's like, I'm a good guy, I'm kind, I'm caring. And I'm like, well, that's who you were.
Yeah.
This is who you are. But it's not till you put pen to paper that you got to do this.
Yeah, no.
You got to put pen to paper. Don't text me a freaking Excel spreadsheet of your step work. That ain't going to work.
Yeah. I heard a guy say, this is a walk show. It's not a talk show.
Yeah. Do the action. Yeah. I still write shit out. Like yesterday I wrote out what's my fear versus the facts. And then who am I? What kind of a guy am I? And then you write out what guy you are today. And then it's like, well, that fear, it's based on the old guy, not this guy.
It's weird, Jay. You mean a lot to a lot of people. Like I don't just speak for myself, but like you were part of like me growing up and my maturation. So to see how awesome you're doing, it's like super cool. And it's really inspiring. Like, and I'm sure you know this, but you probably are humble and you kind of maybe pass it off or hold it off. But like you're somebody like you coming out there and being open like this really helps a lot of people, dude. So I appreciate you, man.
We got to help people. That's how we stay sober.
Yeah.
I was a selfish SOB for the majority of my life. Me. The me motorcycle.
Yeah. I was on that this morning. So it was great talking to you.
You're in Austin?
I'm actually in Waco. So I live in between Dallas and Austin. Yeah.
What's up?
Yeah. You're the man, Jay. I can't thank you enough. Man. Hey, and a lot of stuff I do is sports. Like I do play-by-play. And I've always like, when you would come on Jim Rome and stuff, you're awesome. So the Joe Torre story was perfect.
Thank you, Petey. Love you, buddy. Stay in touch. Okay?
Love you, man. Thanks, Jay.
Peace.
See you, bud. Thanks so much for listening to the Payoff with Pete. Once again, I'm Pete Souza. And of course, we are part of the Rogue Media Network. All kinds of good podcasts you can find at roguemedianetwork.com. And of course, you can find this podcast and all those other ones wherever you get your podcasts, iTunes, Spotify, other spots like that.
This has been a Rogue Media Network production. Are you a podcaster? Let's talk podcast hosting. Are you tired of your current podcast host? Need real support in a community that gets it? At Rogue Media Network, we offer top-tier podcast hosting services to help you thrive. From hosting and distribution to dedicated support, we've got you covered. Starting as low as $25 a month. Join our community of passionate podcasters today. Contact us at hello@roguemedianetwork.com.